Something that wasn't talked about enough came from Joe Biden's speech this week. I didn't feel like he got enough attention for what he said. It kind of shook me to the core because I know what the deep-rooted belief is of this saying. I know the deep-rooted thought process behind this saying. And I know that also that words are important, but the left and liberals have found a way to alter words, change words and their meaning. Things like protests don't mean what they used to. Riots, there's no such thing as riots anymore. There's just protests. There's so many countless words. Racism. I grew up knowing what racism looked like. I know what it felt like. I experienced it as a kid. Me, a white kid. Unbelievable. I know. But I know what that feels like. It hurts. It sucks. But in today's world, it's different. Because they've changed the definition. So something that really got to me, got to my core, and because I know what he means when he says it. Biden said this week during the address to Congress, his joint address, whatever it was, he said that white supremacists are the most lethal terrorist threat to the United States. White supremacists. And part of me wants to agree with that statement because you know why? Because I believe that Antifa and much of Black Lives Matter are the threat, and maybe that's what he's talking about in my head. Because you know why? They destroyed countless cities all summer long. Tons of people were murdered. More than the cops murdering unarmed black men were murdered in just that summer. And as we get ready, it's May 1st right now. More things are going down today to support that as they're going to destroy more cities. I'm seeing in Paris, France right now as that city's on the brink of something insane. Even their generals are coming out against it. Biden said white supremacists are the most lethal terrorist threat to the U.S. Now we know now, after the Capitol 6 riots, which was, as I've said 100 times, totally stupid. What a waste of time. What a good reason for liberals to use you as a prop now. They see you as a threat. They've always seen you as a threat, not a physical threat until that happened. Now they have an excuse to go after you. And you're seeing the crackdown on all those people who even just boasted about being there. Maybe they didn't even enter the building, but they will find you because it's very politically charged now. It's not about truth. It's about sending a message. So Biden says white supremacists. Is he talking about actual KKK members walking around hating the Jews, hating blacks and gays and all these people? Is he talking about that? I don't think so. I think he's referring to the Capitol 6 people. Yes, many of them were crazy, and some of them were just part of the thing. One person died, Ashley Babbitt, that we know for a fact was the reason because of the Capitol 6 riots she died. Still don't know who shot her, and her family's investigating. Good for them. The cop that we thought died because of it turned out it was a stroke. Turned out something else. Other people died because of the same reason. Heart conditions. Health. Not because of what the rioters were doing. So when Joe Biden says white supremacists, who is he talking about? I believe he's talking about Republicans. And in particular, and when I say Republicans, I don't mean all Republicans. I'm not talking like Liz Cheney Republicans. Our other guy in California that's the head, the minority leader, Kevin McCarthy. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about Trump supporters or people that follow in Trump's line like Ron DeSantis. People against the system that support conservative values and are unashamed of them. Are not bashful about it. not afraid to speak what they believe to be true, not afraid to say what needs to be said in order for their voters to vote for them. I'm getting so tired of that. I don't know if you are, of all these politicians saying whatever needs to be said to get in power, and then as soon as they get elected, they go on and do whatever they want. And they run under the name of Republican, or they call themselves Republicans, and they go on CNN and bash the conservatives and stuff like that and say, this doesn't look like my party. And I'm like, because you're not part of our party. So Biden said white supremacists. And as I looked up online before I started this, I just looked up, January 6th, all that stuff, and countless articles after one after another. Here's one. White supremacists who stormed the U.S. Capitol are only the most visible product of racism. So even though it was mixed race among those Capitol riot stormers, and I'm not encouraging it or thinking it's a good idea. I thought it was stupid. It was a waste of time. It wasn't going to accomplish anything. In fact, it made it worse. But now they have a real name, and they're using it. White supremacists. Even though they don't idealize the same things as white supremacists. If you look up the definition of white supremacists, a person who believes that white people constitute a superior race and should therefore dominate a society, typically an exclusion or detriment of other racial and ethnic groups, in particular black or Jewish people. And they've called Donald Trump, they've called other people white supremacists who clearly are not. Because they're trying to change the definition. They're trying to create a stigma about a belief system, about an ideology system. They're trying to make the connection that all conservatives are white supremacists at the heart. And if you're black and you say conservative things, you saw what happened to Tim Scott this week. Tim Scott had a great speech. He talked about how America's not a racist country. Yes, there's been hard times, and yes, he's been pulled over by cops. And yes, it wasn't right. But I too, when I was in high school, there was 1 month, I got pulled over 4 times in 1 month. And there was a few times the cop said, I think I smell something funny. And I would go, I don't think you do because I don't smoke pot. And they would go, I think you do. And I would go, no, you don't. And they were like, well, do you mind if I search the vehicle? And I always said yes because I never had I could care less because I wasn't committing a crime. But they would profile me all the time for the type of car I drove and the kind of music I listened to and all that kind of crap. And the way I looked, I was a skater kid. I looked like like a crazy person. Not much different than I do now. But this is what he's trying to do. He's trying to really go after conservatives. That's why platforms are having a reason. Twitter and Facebook. They're finding reasons to deplatform people, take people off. They're calling you white supremacists for just having a different ideology. Why? And where does this all stem from? Where do they get the balls to say these things? Because of the foundation beliefs of what they believe, and the critical race theory is that there's oppressors and there's the oppressed. And if you are conservative, you're considered an oppressor. You're part of the problem. You need to be smushed out or bend the knee and be a part of it and confess your white supremacy or your supremacy of some kind. Because if you're Tim Scott, you don't have to do that. You're just a part of the problem. You're called Uncle Tim, which is a reference to something worse. You're not allowed to speak out of line. You're not allowed to have your own thoughts, according to the left. And Twitter doesn't care. In fact, it was trending. Uncle Tim was trending. And then the argument between leftists were, hey, white people aren't allowed to say that. Only we are. Only we can be black. Only we can be a racist to people that look like us. How is that okay? That doesn't make sense. They don't even care about the double standard. That's the most annoying part, because you know why? Because of the premise. We as a country, we as a society, we as conservatives, we as libertarians, we as the politically homeless like myself, I just don't feel like I fit in anywhere. I search out truth, and I believe the way I believe is to be true, but I'm also, guess what? I am 100% open to being wrong. I want to be proven wrong. I want to learn. I want to grow. I want to be a different person every day. I want to be a better person every day. But we must reject the premise that there are the oppressed and the oppressors, and it has everything to do with skin color. It has nothing to do with social economic status, who you know, blah, blah, blah. They want you to submit to the ideology of the critical race theory, of the way they do things, socialism, unions. They want you to submit. If you don't submit, you're part of the problem. And they'll call you whatever they want. They'll call you Uncle Tim. They'll call you white supremacist. But who's the real racist that does that? To judge someone on their skin color because of what they think, I don't know what to call that other than racism. Tim Scott is a good dude. I've met him loads of times. He came to my youth group and spoke a few times. Good dude. Nice guy. Genuine dude. I don't care what you believe about his politics. If you don't think he's conservative enough or whatever, it doesn't matter. I don't care. But to call him Uncle Tim is unbelievable. And the people that call, like, some people just white supremacists who are clearly not white, like Ben Shapiro, the Jew, the white supremacist Jew. It's just so idiotic. But it makes sense in their eyes, and with their philosophy, with their foundation of truth, the way they believe the world should be, the way they believe that you and I should believe. I'm sure they would call me a white supremacist, even though the only people I've interviewed are POCs. I haven't had a white person on my show once. Not that I have anything wrong with it. There hasn't been somebody I've been interested to talk to. And the people that I've tried to get on my show are too cool or too big of influencers to give me the time of day, which is whatever. But you must reject their premise. You must reject their foundation. You must continue to stand up and fight it back. You must stop being quiet. We are at a point in our country where we cannot stay silent. I can't stay silent anymore. I'm serious. You just can't anymore. Because the more silent you are, the stronger they grow. And even if it's a small faction, right? Even if it's a few million people, they are loud. And they make it seem like everyone believes this way. And they want you to believe that. They want you to believe that you're alone, that you're scared, and that you just need to be a bystander and let it happen, and that they have the power. Because their whole ideology, their whole purpose, their whole way of life is power. It's to fight power. Fight against power with power. That's what they say. Their argument for white supremacists, for critical race theory, is admit you're a racist and tell us why. It's kind of like the old joke when I was in middle school. Does your mom know you're gay? That's what all middle school kids used to say to each other. And you'd go, wait, no. Wait, oh no. And she's like, does your mom know you're stupid? No. Crap. You have to reject the premise. You have to say, that is stupid. I'm not going to agree or disagree with your statement because the premise is dumb. It makes no sense. You have to fight back. You have to say, I'm not a racist. In fact, I believe everyone should be judged based on their character. I believe everyone's story is different. I believe LeBron James's children will have a different story, a different way of life than my children. To say they're more oppressed than my kids is a joke. Reject it. Reject this premise because it makes no logical sense. And they don't care. Logical sense, logical fallacies, logic is a white supremacist ideology. They even put that in the African American History Museum this summer. I remember reading the list of all those stupid, idiotic things like hard work is a white supremacist thing, like it's a white thing. Showing up to work on time. It was like, no, reject that crap. Reject it. That's not white supremacist. It's the difference between a good person and a lazy person. You need to fight back. You need to reject and be outspoken. And I'm not saying be a jerk. I'm just saying if someone calls you a white supremacist and you know in a fact that you are not, reject the premise. Reject the question. Don't agree to it. Don't bend the knee. It's not worth it. What? You can keep your job for another day and lose your dignity and integrity forever? Is that where we're at? As conservatives, we're just okay to get rid of our dignity and our libertarians, politically homeless, whatever. I don't even know what day it is, how I believe. Some days I'm like, I'm full libertarian. Some days I'm like, I'm full conservative. Some days I'm like, I just don't even care about anything. Just get me away from everyone. Reject the premise. Don't be afraid to speak up. I'm sick of people being afraid. You're only afraid because not enough people do it. And they want to subjugate you. I mean, they're teaching our youth that. Teaching them about their white privilege to little tiny kids. Just ruining their whole schema. Their whole core schema. Ruining their thought process. Why? Because they want to indoctrinate you at a young age where it's hard for you to comprehend some things. I am more nervous about this young college age group coming through with what has been going on the last 3 years or 4 years with critical race theory and all that crap, about what's going to happen in this country. I don't see it ending well unless people start speaking out. And I hope you do with me. Because I'm not scared. I'm not scared. I don't care anymore. Because what I believe is to be true and worth fighting for. Because I believe that everyone should be treated with dignity. Every man and woman should be treated with dignity and seen as respect and seen as full human, despite their political status and what they believe or sexual orientation, whatever. I will love that person regardless. Because that's what I'm called to as a Christian. So I have to. And I want to, but it's a duty for me to love my neighbor. So reject the idea that this white supremacist is the most lethal terrorist threat in the United States. It's the biggest joke I've ever heard in my life. As Joe Biden called Antifa, just an idea. And watch as liberals and Democrats are starting to worry about even Ted Wheeler from Portland, who went on stage with Antifa and before they started shouting at him to get down and get rid of the cops and all that stuff. They want to tear down the system. Black Lives Matter and Antifa, they want to get rid of the system because of systematic racism. They want to take down the entire system. And it stems from a very postmodern approach where history there's no faction. You don't think through things. You see how the Communist Party and socialism was done in history in the world. They don't see that as it's just those white supremacists doing it wrong. They can do it right. Look at how Chaz was. Reject the premise, reject the system. And I'm not saying fight back with like arms and all that kind of crazy. I'm saying speak out. Talk. If someone says, do you accept this premise? Do you accept this ideology? Speak out and talk. Because the more people that do it, the better it will become. And the more comfortable you'll be with just within your own skin. You'll feel like more of a whole person. You'll feel like you'll stop living a lie. Because if the more you try to think about this stuff and try to dissect it, and more you try to understand why they think the way they think, the crazier you'll get, because you already reject their premise, their idea, the foundation of what they believe. And so you are arguing at two different ends that will never meet. I'm worried about where we're going, and it's really frustrating. I don't know. It was just really frustrating to see how Uncle Tim was trending on Twitter, and the left was totally okay with it. But you know what? It's the premise, and they fight bigotry with bigotry. But that's what they want to believe. They want to subjugate people. That's in the premise of what they believe. Is that these white people need to feel what we've felt over these last hundreds of years, and so we're going to subjugate them, and it's okay. It's our turn. It's not going to do anything to bring us together. It's not going to do anything to unify us. And they don't want to. That's what people aren't getting. Even some of my liberal friends are just confused by it. Spend more time reading about their literature and why they believe what they believe. I guarantee you, not only will you reject what they believe, but see why they do what they do. We're growing farther as a country, farther apart. A lot of it stems from how comfortable we are as a nation, how comfortable we are as a people, and how we're afraid of any kind of violence and afraid of any, and I don't mean like physical violence, just like speaking, how we're afraid of uncomfortability as a society. And so we've been able to think about things like microaggressions for the first time ever. You think during the Great Depression they cared about microaggressions? No, we're way too comfortable as a society. Too many comfortable people and all these Antifa kids playing or LARPing, as they call live action role playing, which is just they have no idea what war is, but they like the idea of it, and they want to just. The revolution is a very romantic feeling idea. But as always, liberal leftists think all their policies are good and there's no drawbacks. And the only drawbacks are worth doing in order to take down the system. I don't want to paint a picture of doom and gloom, but I just want you to be aware of what I'm thinking and what's going on in my head and where I think our country is going. And as always, I just want to encourage you to make a difference in someone else's life and reject the premise and stop looking at each other through the lens of critical race theory and through the lens of what liberals tell you is true, because it's not. You know yourself better than they do, and you also know your community better than they do. So do your best to fight against what they tell you is true and find out for yourself, because it's more worth it to find out what's true for yourself. Take the time to learn, take the time to think through some of these issues, think through what you want your government to look like, what you want your political party to look like, what you want, how you want to believe, and how you want your family to believe. Take time to think through those issues, because the indoctrination is real and society pushes so many premises on you that you reject, but it creeps into your head. And that's how they like it. So I hope you guys have a fantastic day. I hope you enjoyed this episode. It's a little bit more somber, a little more serious, but it struck me when I was listening to the speech, hearing him say that, and it just getting washed over and not talked off enough. As conservative, all my people I follow online are conservatives, and even myself, we're just making fun of some of the things he said. Just, wow, that's so dumb. Wow, that's so crazy. Everyone's so focused on the extreme spending that's going on. And yes, it's a huge problem, but I thought that statement about the white supremacists is a serious threat to the United States. Should be considered more seriously because of who they believe a white supremacist is today. It's not who it used to be. No. And they don't care that you know that. Have a fantastic day, guys. I love you. Have a great day. Don't be afraid to speak truth and love someone and care for someone. Go out of your way to serve someone today. Make them smile because it'll make you feel better and it'll make them feel better. Have a fantastic day. As always, I'll see you on the next episode of The Derek O'Shea Show.